Hi, my name is Carrie. I'm a senior here at George Mason, planning to graduate this spring. I'm majoring in conflict analysis and resolution, and I'm minoring in psychology. The article that I chose for this project, it's called Separated and Trafficked Children, The Challenges for Child Protection Professionals. And I chose this article because I'm doing my internship at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children as a case management intern. I found this article on the GMU Library Wiley site, and it was published in something called the Child Abuse Review in the 20th volume in the 5th issue, and was written by Paul Rigby. So this article basically just talks about the background of trafficking. It goes into why children are at a higher risk, talks about it's because they're more vulnerable, they're young, they're easily manipulated, they'll believe things that adults tell them even when they're, not right. And then it talks about how child sex trafficking is one of the fastest growing criminal activities in the world, and it's believed to be that there are up to at least 27 million children at risk for sex trafficking or currently experiencing some sort of it. And then it also discusses about the reunification and rehabilitation process of these children, and then how it talks about how the fear of the aggressor can change into the fear of the system, because sometimes during trafficking, these children are being given money or a place to sleep or food, and then they get thrown back into the system, and they don't know what's going to happen to them. And so the audience for this article was any educated individual who was interested in the topic and wanted to learn about the hardships of the process. So I definitely learned stuff about my internship, but I would say mostly the industry that I work in throughout this article. Most of the things that I do are just day-to-day cases, but it was really interesting to listen and hear about the hardships that go through the process. Sometimes children aren't as cooperative as you would think in situations like this. And it's no fault of their own, just the trauma that they've been through is really hard to deal with. And so the article reflects on the tasks that I do every day. Like I said, each and every day I open cases that are at a higher risk of sex trafficking. We even have to mark specific cases and ask specific questions to the social and caseworkers, sometimes law enforcement as well. If these children are at a higher risk of sex trafficking, that definitely has to be noted. And then just some of the stuff that I thought connected back into my conflict learning process throughout Mason definitely was more in the interpersonal level, and that's my concentration, so it worked out really well. Like I had mentioned earlier, the trauma process has a lot to do with this article and then my line of work and my internship. And then also just the rebuilding and rehabilitation process. I feel like it's talked about mostly on an international level in the conflict school, but also mostly in this line of work, it's the interpersonal level. Another thing that we learned in my interpersonal class was the 3 conversations that needed to be had during rehabilitation. So the first is what happened, second is the feeling conversation, and then the third is the identity conversation, so talking about sense of self. And children definitely that have been exposed to this sort of trauma need extensive therapy, and the 3 conversations can definitely help with that. And then one of the biggest themes that I found throughout this line of work is the power roles that are executed. So I found a quote from Mary Parker Follett that says, power is the ability to make things happen or to bring about a desired outcome. So these children are experiencing these levels of power over them while they're being trafficked and exploited. But then also once they get recovered, they also have the system as their power now, determining where they live and what's going to happen with them for possibly the rest of their life, at least until they're 18. And so that's all I have for the article. It was really interesting, and thanks for listening.